And with that, we're back again because it's time for our next panel discussion. I'm sure all of you who are taking a good look at the agenda also have an idea that we're going back to back with these set of amazing set of topics lined up for all of you. So with that, let's move on to the next panel. And the theme of this session is a world without borders, ushering in the new era of cross-border payments. Again, a very pertinent topic that's been put right here in the session, in these sessions. So let's take a look at who our panelists will be. In fact, this session will be moderated by Mr. Dhaval Jarivala, Associate Director, PwC India, who comes with more than a decade of experience in payments technology transformation, future state architecture design, ISO 2022 and blockchain-based projects. Joining them, we also have with us Mr. Anubhav Sharma, Head International Business Partnership, Business Development and Marketing, NPCI International Payments Limited, who comes with more than 21 years of experience in retail banking and domestic payments network, predominantly managing the digital products, including mobility, ATMs, cards, and net banking. We also have with us Mr. Dharmesh C. Desai, EVP and Head NRI Business and Global Remittances, IndusInd Bank Limited, a senior financial services professional with over 16 years of experience and having expertise across retail banking, private banking, investment products, and more. Joining us, we also have Ms. Nivedita Aggarwal, Head NRI, IRD and GCC Axis Bank Limited, who is armed with, again, more than 15 years of experience in driving new initiatives and sales management. Amongst all the panelists joining us, let me tell you, it's a marathon of panelists over here. So let's also introduce our next panelist, Mr. Chitti Babu, Global Head Strategy, Growth and Partnerships, Buckzy. In fact, he's an experienced business head with having demonstrated history of working in the payments and financial services industry, someone who's very skilled and adept in banking, electronic payments, merchant acquiring, and more. Our next panelist is Mr. Vijay Anand, Head Digital Payments and Payments Processing, APAC and MEA with Mastercard. And he brings an expertise across the cards and payments value chain and has been instrumental in managing large cards and payment relationships with leading financial institutions across the globe. We're also joined by Mr. Gaurav Yadava, Country Director, India and South Asia, Western Union, who comes with rich experience, insights, and understanding of consumers in India and the ability to leverage these effectively through new products and segments. And that leaves us with our final panelist. We have Mr. Naushad, Contractor, CEO, Fable Fintech, the resident strategist driving Fable's vision with incremental authoritative steps, and in fact, his stints at Remit to India, Movida, and Vodafone M-Pesa underscore his more than 20 years of experience in the cross-border and digital payment ecosystem. So yes, ladies and gentlemen, stay with us because in the next couple of seconds or a minute, we'll have all our panelists joining in together to deep dive into this very pertinent conversation. Stay with us. We'll get the session started in a minute.
Thank you so much First of all, very good afternoon to all of you, and a very warm welcome to all our panelists and participants. It's a pleasure hosting this panel discussion. We have very rich and experienced panelists today, and it will be great to hear their thoughts on the topic today. The panel is going to discuss on the topic a world without borders ushering into the new era of cross-border payments. Cross-border payments, needless to say, India is the most important destination for cross-border payments. It has the highest inward remittance in the world, amounting to $83 billion, followed by China and Mexico, and with a growth rate of 8% CAGR over the period of years. This is a huge potential to disrupt this segment, and we are seeing a lot of fintechs and big techs developing a lot of innovative solutions in cross-border payments. Today, in this panel discussion, we will hear from our distinguished panelists their thoughts on how cross-border payments are evolved, what were the challenges, and what future of cross-border payments holds to us. So I would invite first Ms. Nivedita Aggarwal to share their opening statement on this topic, a short statement. Nivedita, over to you.
Thank you, Dhaval. Good afternoon to all. Thank you for having me here, and excited to share the panel with the rest of the team here. So very quickly, few words from my side. I think the space, one, of course, we've seen the growth in cross-border. And it's evident all around us, right? There are people we know who are migrating, there's return migration, there's travel, there's education, there's commerce, there's everything happening. The globe has sort of shrunk, and it's interesting that the pandemic saw a slowdown, but as pandemic is sort of now lifting, things are very rapidly coming back, right? So you see the need for cross-border to keep, to sustain the way we live today, right? It's just part of our social fabric. That said, it's also a very interesting space. I think also it's been poised for disruption for a while, right? But there are multiple forces pulling at it from different directions, and hence we're sort of that inflection point is yet to arrive, can arrive at any point. But as I said, multiple forces. I think I'll leave it at that. I'm sure there'll be more, that is sort of discussed as we go along. Thank you.
Sure.
Thank you for having me.
Thanks, Nivedita. We go to Dharmesh next. Mr. Dharmesh Desai, please, your thoughts.
Yeah. So thanks, Dhaval, for the introduction. And this is a very interesting topic today. More specifically because the domestic payments in India has evolved significantly. So today we are all used to a real-time domestic payments 24/7. And I think a lot of people may not be aware in terms of our domestic payments, India is far ahead than a lot of the developing countries. So while people look at US and think it's one of the most developing country, but India is far ahead than even US on if you consider the domestic payments today. And obviously, thanks to RBI, NPCI, the entire banking infrastructure, the fintechs, where we have reached there. Cross-border payments is slightly tricky because even if, and Nivedita also rightly said, there are clear problems here on the cross-border payments. There are gaps, there are inefficiencies there. However, these solutions are not easy because you are not only relying on the infrastructure of one country, you are relying on multiple countries' infrastructure to ensure that the cross-border payments become more efficient. But however, over the last few years, I have seen a significant change there. And I think this is a good panel. Happy to be part of this panel. And hopefully we will come up with more ideas and where things evolve in this panel.
Can't agree more to that. Next, Mr. Vijay Anand. Your thoughts, please. You are on mute.
Sorry, Dhaval, I got dropped earlier, so
Okay.
So I think thanks a lot, Nivedita and Dharmesh, for setting the tone for the discussion. It indeed is a great time for all of us. What we are seeing is a massive disruption in cross-border, which is easily $1 trillion, you can say, market for us, and where the volume which is getting processed is somewhere around 160 trillion. It is going to touch in 2022. But we just look at it, what is happening, some of the things which Dharmesh and Nivedita have touched upon. The customer experience is definitely taking the key. What customer has experienced is the ease of payments, the payments being available anytime, anywhere with the domestic payment coming in. We have more than 60 countries that have gone live on the faster payment. And that makes it even more, the customer has become much more demanding. There are a lot of factors, as Nivedita put down, which needs to come into consideration. There is a cost angle, there is access angle, there's transparency, there is making sure that it is completely regulated, it is secure with AML coming into play. So it is not an easy problem to solve. And that is where the entire ecosystem of payment need to come together. In fact, interestingly, when we were talking about the challenges, United Nations has identified cross-border as one of the major reasons of poverty. G20 has identified the cross-border as an area of focus, and they have outlined four key areas to focus on. Right? It is about the speed, it is about the access, it is about transparency, and it is about efficiency. But interestingly, what is that is needed today is, if you look at it, all kind of various disruption. There are challenges which is coming to the financial institutions. There are fintechs which are coming in. There are big techs which are coming into play. And as we progress into the discussion, we are looking for the alternate mode of payments, how exactly it is disrupting the market. And most importantly, customer is not going to settle for the same kind of experience which they used to have in a few years back. They want complete control on the money. They want to make sure that there is a value to the money which they are sending, and they definitely want it cheap. So with that, I feel it is going to be an interesting discussion because all the panelists will bring out various perspectives.
Thanks, Vijay, for your thoughts. Next, Mr. Anubhav Sharma, your thoughts, please.
Thank you, Dhaval, for having me here, and a good afternoon to all the co-panelists. I think, Dhaval, this subject itself is so very interesting, right? And coming from NPCI, real-time payments, cross-border payments is something which is very close to our heart. And a couple of points, I think I'll pick on what Vijay Anand said. It's really, really relevant. The way the domestic payments has evolved in the last 4 to 5 years is something which is phenomenal, the kind of growth that we've seen. And the expectation from an end consumer perspective, Dhaval has come to a perspective that if I have to do cross-border payments, they should also be real-time, right? And why not? Because the technology can enable it. I think the most other important aspects that should come to the fore, and the two key aspects that come to my mind, which one Vijay briefly touched upon, is the fact that cross-border payments in terms of the efficiency, in terms of the costs, are a G20 priority, right? And having said that, today, we believe that by 2023, the presidency for G20 will come to India, and what better time for us to have done something which is very, very relevant and showcase to the world on how the real-time payment systems work. Having proven to the world that real-time payment systems can be efficient, can be low cost, I think it is only a logical extension that we showcase this to the world from a cross-border perspective. That's part one. Part two, which kind of gets undermined, Dhaval, is the end user experience. I think, again, Vijay briefly touched upon it. Because when you look at it, eventually, who are we trying to do this for, right? It's for bringing down the cost at the last mile consumer, enhancing or even bettering the last mile consumer. So if today within the countries, when you're talking about the real-time payment systems, if I have a particular experience which I am akin to, I'm aligned to, I think if you can, from a cross-border payments perspective, keep that constant for me, not to have a separate behavior when I'm doing a cross-border transaction vis-a-vis what I do at a domestic level, I think that would be a big win. And this is not just from India as a country, but I speak on behalf of other countries who already have real-time payment systems and have certain standardized processes. I think that'll be a win because a consumer does not need to know what's going on in terms of the technology, right? So that's key for me. And I think collectively, when we work on this objective, we should be very cognizant of the fact that the end consumer convenience is very critical. And to that extent, the user experience, if that can be standardized, I think we have a real win. And Nivedita briefly mentioned the inflection point. I think that's just around the corner.
Yes, thank you. I can't agree more, Anubhav, to their points. Thank you for your thoughts. Next, I'll invite Gaurav to share his thoughts, please.
Thank you, Dhaval, and pleasure to be here. And good afternoon to all the panelists and all the viewers of today's conversation that we are having. A business in Australia offers a better way to its consumers in Angola to pay. an NGO in UK wants to debit its bank account and send money to a conflict-ridden zone, or as simple as, let's say, a family in India wanting to send money to their child in Canada or in the US for living expenses, who is just doing education. Now, these are all use cases of payments in the cross-border space. I think my co-panelists just touch upon the complexity regarding cross-border payments. Just add a little bit color to it, which is, it's not just about the fact that there are multi-geographies, multi-jurisdictions which you have to solve for. It is also about the FX and the liquidity, the whole play of the payment stack that goes in and around. It's also about the fact that the different countries are in different inflection points as far as their own internal payment systems are concerned, added to the complexity that the customer need really has not changed. The customer actually demands what Vijay already says, the 4 cornerstone as laid out in G20. I think the customer voice has been very constant over there. I think this is a whole piece which is waiting to be solved for. A lot of progress in the consumer to consumer space, a lot of progress yet to be made beyond the consumer to consumer space. And that's really, I would say, the key focus area for everyone. It's when the businesses start talking to each other. It's when consumers start talking to businesses, which is just beyond the consumer to consumer space. And that adds to the trillions of dollars of payment flows on a cross-border space that actually occurs. I think these are the points which are focused on. Undeniably both exciting, interesting, and a good problem for us to solve. A lot of problems already solved, as Anubhav from NPCI was changed. A lot of problem solving around the corner, but quite a few different problems to solve, which is something that I'm very excited to participate with this panel in today's conversation.
Absolutely valid point, Gaurav. I think, thank you for your thoughts. I would request Mr. Chitti Babu to share your thoughts, please, and then we can have Naushad to then give their final thoughts on the topic, and then we can enter into questions.
Yeah, thanks, Dhaval. And my co-panelists made some very interesting, relevant points, right? And if you look at, there's been a lot of disruption in the payment ecosystem that we are all used to, right? I mean, we are like basically pampered. You push the payment, it's there on the other side the next second. But if I can rewind like a decade back, I used to be in the transaction banking space, managing some of the largest, Japan, Korean, Taiwan IT companies, which constantly used to either remit money out or receive money in. At no point of time, we were able to provide them on where the money is. That in terms of the journey where they or when the credit will happen, if the credit has happened, or even the transparency in pricing. We have come a long way now. But I guess the key part is that our technology is going to come and play a role, because as we see that many countries adapting to real-time payment system, it's very clear that the regulator in each country is pushing, right? Like our friends in NPCI and everywhere else across the globe have taken initiative to get that money movement locally. Now, technology will play, can come and play a very interesting and a critical role, how to connect the dots across the border, right? And again, one key point probably we are missing out is that how do we engage with the customer at the time of onboarding? And how do we engage with the customer who's receiving the money? That also will play a role, because one is the money movement part once the person clicks send, but again, how do you engage before that click button happens and once the money is remitted? So that also will be very critical. I'm going to detail on it as we go progress, because one is the ease, other is the experience, other is the transparency. So all three will play a critical role. So that, because there's a confidence factor also that we need to put in to those people who are going to use those platforms.
Sure. Thanks. Thank you for your thoughts. I would request Mr. Naushad to give his final opening statement, and then we can go into questions. Mr. Naushad.
Yes. Hi, everybody. It's great to be here. Thank you for all your fantastic thoughts. The way I look at the world is, simplifying this too much may, sometimes seem that we'll not have jobs in the next 6 months. But jokes apart, our job as the industry ecosystem players is to address in removing this friction with the use of technology wherever logically possible, in order to make the flow more efficient and then seeing if we can pass on this efficiency in some manner to the customer while maintaining our respective, revenues and profitability. Because at the end of the day, this is a business which needs to be done. And unless it's sustainable, it'll become difficult to keep offering great technology and great solutions to customers if the profitability falls beyond a particular, threshold. And having said that, I completely echo Gaurav's view that, everybody focuses on how consumers and individuals and retail customers are getting affected by this. But there is a huge play in the small to medium enterprise cross-border transaction requirements. Also, there are lots of individuals who do this for business purposes. There are freelancers working across the world. There are medical transcriptionists working across the world. So for business, small value transactions are also a huge focus area for us. And I think it should be going forward, because the world will become more and more global, and people will be needing to send money beyond just for love and affection at a small value. If that is not made more efficient, then either people will suffer or those transactions will not happen at all. So thank you again, and look forward to our discussion going forward.
Absolutely. Very valid thoughts, Naushad. And then we segue into the questions. So first question is, I would like to ask Mr. Dharmesh Desai. Dharmesh, you have been in this industry for long. You have seen evolution of cross-border payments. So you have seen it from happening in few days, 3 to 4 days, into 3 to 4 minutes now. So what are the factors which have enabled faster processing of cross-border payments? I just want to hear your thoughts on how this cross-border payments have evolved, Mr. Dharmesh. Hello, Mr. Dharmesh.
His screen seems to have got stuck, Dhaval. You can move to somebody else and come back to Dharmesh.
Yeah, sure. So then I will go to Nivedita. So Nivedita, your thoughts on how cross-border payments have been evolved, a few points. And then if you look at a lot of big tech and fintechs which are coming up with innovative solutions, and there are new channels of payments for cross-border has been evolved. How do you see banks playing a role with them? Will it be more competitive or collaborative? Your thoughts on that, Nivedita, please.
Yeah, thanks, Anand. So yes, I mean, we've seen cross-border payments come a significant way. There is technology today that enables, as you rightly said, instant payments, complete transparency as to where the payment lies if required, and has brought down costs to some extent, right? So we're seeing that happen. There is enough innovation happening even to sort of solve for the liquidity problems. So we've seen a lot of tech evolve in terms of improving the customer experience, right? And but where I feel the next wave of tech evolution has to happen, if we really need to bring this, to as good as domestic is, and as the kind of work complements to NPCI for the kind of work that they've done on the domestic side. But to replicate that, we need tech to also work on the compliances, because AML is a large risk for cross-border, and that's where we struggle, to rely on tech to ensure that the risks in a transaction are highlighted. Right, A. B, of course, the other challenge, and some of the panelists have alluded to it already, that make it unique here is because every geography is so different, either in terms of its tech evolution, in terms of its regulatory evolution, or in terms of, just the geography landscape, right? My ability to read the data I'm getting in a remittance message and being able to sort of say, oh, is this acceptable or not? So tech has to evolve to even solve for that. And that's where I think, we will see the next wave of possible innovation and growth to come in. That said, coming to your specific question on fintech and big banks, right? Or just banks. I think we've seen this in lending, we've seen this in domestic payments, we've seen this, in multiple sectors already. And I think that's exactly what we're seeing in cross-border too. It's a mix of collaborate. Of course, compete is more of learning from each other. So I think, customer experience today has become table stakes, and that those the tech innovation that's probably brought in a more nimbler fashion by fintechs. You either learn or you partner, right? For a bank. For fintechs, it's of course the fact that banks have handled scale, banks have handled risk. And again, there is, cross learnings and collaboration possibilities over there. So that's how I believe this will sort of evolve as we go along. There's no
Oh,
straight
absolutely.
answer.
That's a valid thought. I think collaborative in innovation and solving the problem of compliance, how we can faster process it, that makes real sense. And that is where the next set of innovations we will look at. Since Dharmesh is back, Dharmesh, just wanted to know your views on how has cross-border payment evolved and what and how it has helped us do faster processing of cross-border payments.
So, Dhaval, I have been seeing as a banker for last 20 years, I
Correct.
have seen a complete evaluation of the way it has evolved in last 20 years is amazing. So 20 years back, I remember bankers used to facilitate customers doing a TT or a wire transfer. The ask from a customer was only two. When will the money reach and what is the exchange rate I will get? And honestly, as bankers, we did not have answers. I still remember bankers used to advise customers that send $50 more because you don't know what will reach eventually. And that was how inefficient the payment system was. The expectation was also not as high as today. I think things have evolved. Today, while we are not at a real-time payments in cross-border, I think 50% of payments are still at a 1-day, 2-day TAT. But I think fairly decent evaluation which has happened there. Customers know when the money will reach, what is the rate they will get at the end of the transaction. So I think that clarity is there. I see, and I have a slightly different opinion here. See, today I think the tech is there. The way, and as bankers, we meet fintechs, we meet technology vendors. I don't see the issue today in terms of technology. I think 10 years back, that was an issue. There was no tech to solve these problems. Today, I think tech is there to solve the problems. The issues are different today. The issues today are more on the regulatory, fraud check, AML. And that is where the risk is. So if you ask me honestly as bankers, we have technology where I can facilitate a real-time transaction between two countries. But there is a risk of fraud. There are customers who want to make use of this loophole, send money, and there are different regulations in multiple. I'll give you an example. US, for example, if somebody sends a remittance, he has a right to recall the money even after a month after he sends the remittances. Now, what happens? If I do a real-time transfer, the money is credited to somebody in India. And as bankers, we have all seen that frauds happening. Within our banking system, while 99% of the money is legitimate, I think that 1% is creating a hurdle today to make it more real-time or more seamless. There is also AML check. So there is in cross-border, there is also what type of money which is flowing in your country. And obviously, we all know in India also there is a much stricter regulation now in terms of AML and terrorist funding. And it is the responsibility of this ecosystem to check that there is only legitimate money coming. And I think that is where it will take some more time to reach to a level of a domestic payment ecosystem.
Absolutely. Totally agree with your points. I think regulation and checks is most important. And we see that getting into the next topic, I think it's important that there is a thing where we enable small value, because small value payments in cross-border is something people find it very difficult. So looking at that, we have seen NPCI tying up with Pay Now in Singapore. So my next question to you, Mr. Anubhav, is how has this been experienced so far? What are the challenges you have been facing, and how will this help people sending small ticket cross-border payments across multiple countries? And what are the future plans of NPCI on collaborating with other faster payments to solve the small value payments on cross-border?
Sure. So, Dhaval, I'll answer that. I'll take a step back. And I think a couple of these points which the co-panelists mentioned are really, really intrinsic to the way cross-border shall see a progressive growth in the times to come. And to that effect, my limited submission again is that there is a lot of work which BIS is doing. There are a lot of work streams with CPMI. And one of that specific point I want to pick up is the work stream with regard to standardization of the APIs. Now, again, Dharmesh briefly mentioned the kind of challenges that people are facing in terms of time, in terms of cost, in terms of the efficiencies. And when I come from a network background, I would want to believe that if you need to achieve scale, standardization is quintessential to the kind of growth that we're looking at some point of time. And to that extent, it gives me a lot of pleasure on behalf of all of us to say that our regulator, Reserve Bank of India, made a joint announcement with MAS in Singapore to connect the two real-time payment systems. Now, what is the essence behind this entire framework has a history of about a year. And we are aware that Thailand, PromptPay has already done an integration with Singapore Singapore Pay now, and there is already a work which is happening in this direction to see interconnected countries and eventually look at how the P2P remittances could be made real time. And that is why I would briefly also draw upon the previous point that I mentioned, that standardization not just at the ecosystem level is important, but also a standardization in the way the consumer behavior is taken care of is very, very important, right? It cannot so happen that there are some 20 countries which connect over a period of time. I need to send money to Singapore, I have to behave differently. Vis-a-vis, if I have to send the money to UK, my behavior has to change, right? So that's something which is very, very important. There is enough work which is being done. And to that extent, the project has just about started, Dhaval, while we too premature to come up in terms of what are the challenges we are facing. We have set work streams going in terms of our engagements on the technology front, the legal aspects, the KYC, AML, the other compliance-related checks, and obviously business streams. Once we see forward progressive movement with both the progressive regulators being involved, I think this should solve a lot of these problems which we believe are there in the present day, because the problems are known and the solutions are to be dwelled upon. And if you look at it broadly, you would have also seen a reference to Nexus, right, which is a co-authored paper by NPCI. And I, at a personal level, would believe that something like that would solve for the multiple countries to be interconnected, because it's not one-to-one that I want to solve a problem for. I want to create a connected world. And if a framework like Nexus obviously becomes reality, then there is precious little, that anybody would be able to do in terms of stopping this progressive movement, right? Because I need to connect to this framework, and the framework is already connected to multiple other countries. I get direct access into this as a global network. So there are thoughts around this. There are a lot of inputs that are coming in from the banking community. They're coming in from the exchange houses, the people who do this day in, day out. And once all of these are fructified, I think that will lay out a very good path for us to build a strong network and rails on. However, how the proposed model, which intends to go live in the month of July 22 between India and Singapore, is shaping up. It's in its infant stages, but I think you'll hear about it more when the work streams start getting proper alignment from various fronts.
Yeah, can't wait to try that out. Thank you. I think the important point is standardization and getting everyone onto the same platform is the key to enable, seamless cross-border payments. So that's very good insights. I think it is good to understand how things are going, and of course, wishing you all the best for that. So segueing into that, so we have seen faster payments connecting. We have seen traditional payments, traditional way of correspondent banking and intermediaries, how transactions are happening. So my next question to you, Vijay, is what are the other models or other ways in which cross-border payments can be enabled? Your thoughts around that, it would be great to the viewers.
Thanks, Dhaval. And just taking the point from Dharmesh, that most of the problems which we are trying to solve on cross-border is not technical. There are structural changes which is needed. There are different ways in which my cross-border has to evolve, because we are not only catering to customer to customer, we are catering to B2B, we are catering to C2B, and each one of them have a different task. So there is a need for coexistence of all these models, which definitely need to come together, and innovation is happening in all of them. So what you rightly mentioned is on the correspondent banking, which is the traditional rail in which we have seen Swift GPI definitely bringing a lot of innovation. That definitely has made changes with respect to bringing more transparency, bringing more traceability to the payment. The other method which definitely is picking up with the central infrastructure based, where we have examples of countries coming together, where the different cross-border payments are getting connected together. And some of the example which we have seen in Nordics, like in P27, we have SEPA Instant coming in, we have Buna coming from AMF. And that is where many of the fintechs are also leveraging that, because they are able to connect to those rails and making sure that they are bringing the innovation to make sure that inefficiencies and the speed they can bring to the end consumer. So we are seeing a lot of innovation in that. One very, very interesting and traditional way is of the networks, the role which the likes of Mastercard and Visa is playing. So if you look at Mastercard cross-border services, we bring out a lot of positives to the customer, because one of the key things is about the connectivity. We talked about Nexus, where a couple of countries, two countries are coming together, getting connected. Bilateral connectivity, we all know, is not very efficient. But what network is able to bring is the direct payout integration to, like in Mastercard, 140 plus market. What we are talking about is the connectivity to almost cash payout for 280K location and access to 90% of the World Bank account. We have seen innovation that is coming in Mastercard cross-border services. For B2B specifically, both Mastercard and Visa have launched some specific new capabilities. We are doing more transparency and clarity for making sure that the business can really enable those payments together. So that is an additional one. And one where we are seeing a lot of interest is on the distributed ledger, where the likes of Ripple is coming into play, where they are moving away the role of the intermediaries, and that definitely is picking up. Another thing which some of the new fintech like Trello is coming in with the digital identity. That is another innovation which we are seeing. So there are multiple ways in which this problem is getting approached, because there is a place for everyone, because one size cannot fit all. You need to have an existence of correspondence banking. It has its own reason of existence. The B2B, as Dharmesh was saying, it is not a technical problem for us to solve. We need to make sure that we are adhering to the law of the land. AML is a big concern, and the speed cannot outweigh, or speed is important, but the payment to be compliant and being regulated is far more important, because you cannot have a chance of miss there, because 99% is not good enough. It always has to be 100%, otherwise it will go nowhere. So that is where I feel that there are different models in which the innovation is happening, and interesting use cases of WISE. We have some of our friends who are coming from some of the very, very innovative fintechs who are trying to solve this problem. But the most important thing is, as we are trying to understand the complete set of different players, we have to attack at each of the kind of payments, right? So that is where I feel that models will keep on evolving, and we all are going to see transformation happening in almost every kind of payment processes which we see, and alternate methods to really get picked up.
No, absolutely, Vijay. I think valid points. That network getting together, technology is already there. We have new technology like DLT. Talking about DLT, which is one of the new ways where we can see cross-border as a use case. So segueing into that, Gaurav, my next question to you would be around, of late we see that we're growing interest in CBDCs, and cross-border remittances is seen as one of the prominent use cases. Central banks are jointly trying to explore this place and have started to come with their initial findings. According to you, how will CBDC solve the cross-border? What are the problems of cross-border which CBDC can solve? Your views on that, it will be great.
Sure, thanks. And I'll just pick off again from what Vijay had said. The pain points are the same. It's about the speed. It's about the cost. It's about the transparency, and the whole, and of course about access. Let us not forget access. The pain points, what any currency tries to solve for, are the same, right? And these are exactly the problems I would think that the CBDCs will try to solve. It is an interesting evolving situation, the way we look at it. We know that more than half of the central banks have expressed interest, have initiated studies. Some of them have also put into place pilots into their local markets. So So this will evolve, as we say, but the pain points are the same. I'd rather focus on what would be the critical prerequisites to make any, let's say, currency successful, right? I mean, obviously it is about access. Now, in this case, it is about access to the internet. There are still many parts of the world which are still dark, don't even have full 3G, right? So if that is, if to make a CBDC successful, it is what it takes, then this access needs to be improved. It's about digital adoption. Nearly half of the world's population does not have a smartphone. I'm sure there are going to be some interesting, innovative ideas that will come about solving for this, but this is something which has to be solved for. Of course, you have to consistently and constantly work on digital and financial literacy. This is going to be a new way, and so on and so forth. People need to be comfortable with it. People need to feel safe. Feeling safe and being safe are two different things. I think if nothing else, the last 12, 18 months have all showed us that. Both are very different constructs in people's mind. The big driver that is basically coming in from is the sheer and constant immediacy demand from the consumers. I think you can understand where the consumers are coming from. The operational issue of how to move money in real time, etc., are these are solvable. The really one big point which both Dharmesh and Vijay focused on was how to do it in a compliant manner in a real time basis. I think that's really the issue. From a Western Union perspective, a couple of things that I can state is that we are already offering our services in over 130 currencies. So those are what you might call settlement currencies. From our point of view, any adoption of any currency, digital or otherwise, is basically coming in from two parts. One part, that the consumer demand should be there. The consumer is the king at the end of the day. Adoption has to take place. And that is one particular way that we look at adopting this particular thing. Our system is flexible and versatile. We can take care of it. If you can do 130 currencies, you can do 230 currencies. That does not really matter. The focus would be to contribute in making any payment system safe for systemic strength. That is of utmost importance. The critical thing would be not to exclude people or design programs in a way that by default tend to typically could exclude specifically those societies or those parts of the society which actually require probably more inclusion, as the case might be. So those would be, let's say, the big driving points from our point of view. We think we are a little further away on CBDCs, but again, interesting and evolving situation.
Yeah, no, very valid point. I think access, security, and unbiased use cases for all. I think that is one of the most important keys. And CBDC is a technology which can enable this and solve for that, but still the compliance and security is something which has to be focused. I think that definitely makes sense. So now segueing from next topic from CBDC to technology. So Naushad, my next question to you is, technology has played a very key role in enabling or to reduce the speed of processing cross-border payments. Your view on how technology has helped, and in the future, how do you see technology solving these problems? Looking at all the other parameters like compliance and all in place. So in that framework, how does technology play? Naushad.
Oh, I mean, I would like to start by just slightly differing on the need for speed. I've lived away from my family all my professional life, and whether my father used to live in Nagpur, whether I live in Mumbai or New York, his need remains same. He doesn't start eating gold biscuits because I started living in New York. And the important thing is that in those approximately 25 years that I've been living away, maybe there was one instance where he needed the money on a tomorrow morning basis. Otherwise, something would go wrong. So the need for speed in a cross-border remittance, especially for family maintenance, is not really huge. What speed addresses actually, to be honest, is the guarantee and the peace of mind to both the sender and the receiver that the exchange rate is this, and my money will be received by this person in this much amount. It tells the user saying your money is delivered in 30 seconds. He's saying, okay, now I'm done. I don't have to keep worrying what will be the exchange rate, how much money will be delivered. So I think that's what we need to firstly agree and address. It's become more of an advertising thing than a need from a consumer perspective. second important thing to understand is that, technology, and, I'm not a technologist. By design, my last name is Contractor and not engineer. So I'm not a technologist, and that's why I can speak a little more dispassionately about it. Technology is limited by the availability of local payment systems in multiple countries to be able to co-create a cross-border transaction. If you look at it very closely, and if you I'm just assuming everybody on the call and in the audience or wherever has watched movies and likes to watch movies, because in the old days, smugglers used to tear a currency note into half, give one currency note to the guy with the cash bag and one currency note to the guy with the gold, and then both of them used to meet in a swanky hotel in Goa, and they would exchange the currency note. It would be matched, and then they would exchange the bags. Nothing's different from that for a cross-border transaction. The problem today is that one half of the currency note is a US dollar note, and the other half is an Indian rupee note, and the two can very difficult to match. So India has UPI and IMPS and this and that. Many countries don't have those kind of advanced payment systems. So that real-time thing is very dependent on both the countries having very similar or at least some form of real-time payment. That's a very important part which you kind of continuously forget. The second thing is that, even though these systems like, the fantastic job that both the people in Singapore and the NPCI in India have done, that still need orchestration, it still needs compliance, it still needs volume velocity checks, it still needs to make sure that the purpose of the remittance is correctly defined. Those cannot go out of the window because there is a real-time payment system available. Otherwise, transactions will happen where, in our world, we always joke that neither Osama nor Obama are really welcome. And, to make sure that they are not part of the ecosystem, or if they are part of the ecosystem, they're reported appropriately. Those things don't go out of the window because the payment has become real-time. So real-time payments is really great. It helps us to do many, many things, but we cannot keep our eye off the ball on so many other factors that make a cross-border transaction so much more complex, difficult. And, still from a customer perspective, they want to see the swan swimming on water, not how badly or how tough they are paddling under the water. But we've got to take care of that as ecosystem players. The last thing I would like to say is that, UPI as an example, which is more easy to understand, has become the UPI it is, not because it was created by the NPCI, but because the Phone Pays and the Paytms and the Google Pays of the world and certain banks took the initiative to make use of that available technology. So it is up to us, as industry players, to see how we can make use of technology to make all the friction points across the cross-border payment as less as possible. I know we should be happy to crawl and walk and run, and we may get excited sometimes and talk about the running and forget about the crawling and the walking. But I think that's very important that we understand it's going to be it's a long haul. We understand that we will remove one friction at a time probably, and not all the 10 points of friction on the same day. And if we are all cognizant of this and working towards that common goal, then I think we're all good. Thank you for your time again.
Yeah. So thank you for your thoughts, Naushad. So I understand that technology is there. But most important thing is how do you give the comfort of mind to the customers is important, where they are enabled to do their payment in a secure way. So
no, I think sorry to interject, Dhaval. There it's very important to understand that sometimes we believe that air travel is more dangerous than road travel, but the fact is that more people die on road accidents than air accidents across the world, and the reason is we are more careful when we are flying. Whether you are Mukesh Ambani or Naushad Contractor, the seatbelt has to be worn. It doesn't matter. And if the customer understands that, that when I'm doing an electronic transaction, whether it's domestic or cross-border, I must log out, I must not do this, those do's and don'ts are clearly understood and customers follow them, then electronic payments is far more secure than not electronic payments. Sorry to interject.
No problem. I think that's a valid point, and I think that is the focus. And that is where I will segue to my next question to Mr. Chitti Babu. Looking at customer, I think the whole need around enabling payment seamlessly secure way is the need of the customer, and the customer experience is very important. So whether you feel that customer, so your thoughts on the focus of customer needs and how this big tech, fintechs and players like you would help enable or enhance the customer experience in terms of cross-border payments.
Absolutely. Very, very interesting points again by my co-panelist. I guess one thing we should also keep in mind as the world comes closer and more connected, there's going to be a whole bunch of people or businesses which is opening up would be, doing this kind of transaction for the very first time, right? And Gaurav highlighted the need for education. I guess that will be very critical because, some of the points we may make by assuming that because we are all used to smartphones for the last decade. So a lot of people are using technology for the first time, and we are not talking about sending a WhatsApp message. We're talking about sending money, right? So which could be hard earned or it could be urgent requirement on the other side. So I guess I feel the onboarding experience will play a very big role to as a starting point. The kind of UI UX experience, like probably my 80-year-old father should be able to do it without much of hassle, or probably somebody just opening up technology for the first time to send money, because there's going to be a whole lot of businesses that's going to be using this platform, right? Because technology is a new word for them. So onboarding will be very, very critical. The education, awareness, UI, US experience, whether people on the go can do it, portability. So all those things will play a very big role. And then comes the most important part, transaction monitoring. I guess everybody stressed on the point that speed is going to be taken care of, right? Probably in 2-3 years time, because the international wires that we used to use may not be required, because the liquidity management of treasury can take care of, because once you cite the funds, you can immediately pay it locally. And with every country having a real-time payment system, speed will be taken care. So in 2-3 years time down the road, that's not going to be a factor anymore, right? But the critical factor will be that how robust your transaction monitoring system are, because a good percentage of people going to be moving the money to beat the system, right? Probably the money should not be moving from where it is to the destination where it is meant to be, right? So how robust is the transaction monitoring system? Is it use the machine learning continuously? Are you going to learn, upgrade it? Are we going to avoid the false positive, at the same time avoid those fraudulent transactions? That will play a critical role, because then a genuine transaction can be withheld or a wrong transaction can go through, right? And then comes obviously the visibility, transparency, how you use your data analytics to give the transparency on where the money is. All those things will come into play. The kind of MIS that you're going to make customer available, because the global trade is going to boom, right? Post-pandemic, we're expecting to see a lot of export-import transaction with the China Plus One strategy. India's very well positioned to take many of those opportunities, right? So in terms of MIS, that will play a very critical role. So if I'm a CFO or a CEO, I need to know the kind of receivables, the breakup, all those things will come into play. And then I guess transparency is again a done deal, right? There was a point of time then, you used to pay a $1 for a transaction, kind of a thing. Now it's like really, really come down to a wafer thin margin. And then it comes to, some of the co-panelists mentioned about those small and medium enterprises. I guess that is very critical, because they borrow money at a huge cost. There is a working capital management that they focus on, right? So probably the banks need to come in and say, okay, can we do a receivable discounting, right? So if the money is cited, can you offer those products and services? So that's what I meant. One part is the money movement. Other part is it, how do you engage before the customer comes on board? And then you also, how you manage the person who receives the money. Then the whole concept of providing banking as a service, as a platform will come into play. So once the money comes in, how do you engage with the customer? Because somebody who receives the money gonna pay it to multiple parties as well. So are you part of that play? And that is something at Buckzy Payments, we are very, very passionate and building a very agile, robust system for the future.
I think very valid point, Chitti Babu. So I think the customer experience, the straight-through processing, the secure monitoring system, and of course the access to everyone. I think that is the key, which I mean customers would look at, and that is the need where all the fintechs, banks, and everyone who are a part of the ecosystem are trying to solve. I mean, very great, valid points and input from everyone. I think we will take one of the questions from the viewers, which I said, and this question is specifically to you, Anubhav. This question is from Sachin, and he asks us, what were the major challenges we faced while integrating with Singapore faster pay system? So I think similar to that only, but which I understand that currently you have said that it is just begun and it is yet to solve. But few thoughts on that so that we can give some insights to our
No, absolutely. I think just to answer to Sachin's question, we will get to the phase where we'll come up with the challenges and we will solve for it. it's a journey which has just begun about a couple of weeks back. The technical integration is still to come in, and we will be looking forward to solving for these problems. And Dhaval, I just wanted to add one thing, and that's again building upon the previous point which came in, and I didn't want to lose that thread, is the fact that, the co-panelists did mention the requirement to match the speed from a compliance perspective. And that is where I kind of keep coming back to the standardization perspective. And if there are real-time payment systems which are working on APIs, if we could come up with some kind of a mechanism where even before the financial transaction is initiated, there is a leg which goes and does the compliance checks and gets a confirmation from all the possible angles, the regulatory, the cross-border, and whatever it needs, right, AML perspective. And the sending entity is made assured that it's going to be correct account, all the validations have been taken care of. And then is when the financial leg is initiated, I think that will take care of a lot of these issues, and maybe the post-transfer related troubles that individuals may get into may be done away with. So that's something which is playing on my mind. I thought I'll just kind of mention that. That's something we would also be looking at doing in future.
No, absolutely valid. I think looking at all the points and what the thoughts all the panelists have shared, I think most important thing which I have captured today as part of the discussion is first thing, transparency, convenience to the customers. Technology is there. It is just matter of how we can make it more seamless, how we can reduce the time of processing the compliance. I think compliance is very important, but how do we process it seamlessly along within the framework which has been guided? And there are a lot of regulations which are also coming up, which is helping to evolve. Of course, we have seen a lot of say faster payments which are coming and trying to create an ecosystem. Similarly, we have seen DLT based platforms like Ripple and all getting different use cases to enable faster payments. So I think that are all good insights. So since we have last 15 minutes of the panel discussion, I would like to conclude this panel discussion with closing remarks for each of the panelists. And to that, I will first give my closing remarks. So what I understand, so the closing remarks I would want from each one of you is around where do you see cross-border payments in 2025, right? So if you ask me, my point of view is looking at how mobile technology has developed from a single user to multiple. Now, today, you can call anyone, anywhere of the world, right? And we have transparency on what fees. So that is where I would look at in 2025, the cross-border payments to go where we have transparency, and with a device we can quickly send it with all the security and all the convenience which we can do. So closing remarks, I would request Mr. Dharmesh to first start and give their closing remarks on this topic.
Yeah. So Dhaval, thanks. While I agree with you on your closing remarks, I have a slightly more pragmatic or a practical view on this. I don't see why 2025 domestic payments converging with a global payments. So cross-border payments will be slower than domestic payments by 2025. Maybe by 2030, I can see them converging and the speed would be at par. And I think at times, as bankers or people in the ecosystem, we get colored by problems which are not genuine problems. So the need today, obviously, as things improve, as efficiency, as technology comes in, payments will become cheaper, payments will become faster, but that's not the need today. I think we are all then working on a false need if the end objective is to make payments cheaper or faster. It's like driving, right? So fastest is not the safest or cheapest is not the best. So I think it is important now in the next 5 years of the way payments would evolve is how safer the infra is built now to ensure that the efficiencies on the safety net is more secure and the payments are secure. So that's my closing remarks. I still see some more work to be done. By the time we reach the cross-border payments become as efficient as domestic payments.
Thank you for your input, Dharmesh. Thank you for that thoughts. And Nivedita, over to you next.
Yeah, thanks, Dhaval. I think I partially echo what Dharmesh said, but what I think will start to happen is we will see corridor-wise disruptions. So in terms of, sorry, am I audible clearly? Yeah.
Yes, you are.
Okay, sorry, thanks. So I think what we'll start to see is corridor-wise disruptions. Definitely the NPCI use case that is now being worked upon with Singapore is going to be a model, that will set the tone for a lot of this. Standardization, I completely, again, agree with Anubhav. The only way AML compliances can be overcome with technology is there is some standardization globally amongst geographies. And it will have to be a corridor-by-corridor approach with investments, equal investments, and hopefully an orchestration at a global level, which BIS is looking at doing. Yes, 2025 will look much better than where we are today, but maybe a complete change, to a global level may take a few more years. I agree with that.
Yeah, of
Thanks.
course. It has to pan out over a period of time, and it will take some time for everyone to fall in the way it is. So I think point taken, Nivedita. Vijay, Anand, from your end, your closing remarks on the topic.
I completely agree with Dharmesh because I think we are simplifying the problem than what it is. We definitely are. When we talk about customer experience, it is not just UX, it is end-to-end. And end-to-end has many more things to do. Of course, the ease, the speed, all of these control is important, but it has to be compliant. It definitely needs structural changes. And we have seen that industry adoption is not easy. ISO 20022, we have seen different reasons are struggling to meet the timeline. The timelines have been missed out, and many of the banks still are trying to comply to ISO 20022 as a regulatory need rather than they are able to really revamp. So it is going to be slow, but we need to really make sure that we are putting our best foot forward in trying to solve the immediate problem. Of course, is the customer experience that has really got hyped because of the retail payment coming in, because of the mobile adoption, the digital payment, the way UPI has completely transformed India digital payments. But nevertheless, it will take time, and we have to give due time to it because we cannot go wrong. For me, I feel that the important thing is if we are able to establish 3 I's of what we call payment. Instant is important, but most important is how intelligent is the payment. Are we able to identify the right set of regulatory challenges? Are we able to make sure that the fraud is taken care? Are we able to keep the user insulated from the different rails? Multi-rail strategy is going to come to work. So all of those things that needs to come where the data has to play a big role about the ecosystem coming together and solving the real problem. So what Dharmesh was telling, it is easier, right? It is not a T20 game. It is not a sprint. You have to give due. T20 is exciting. You will be able to send it in 5 seconds. But what Naushad was telling was right on the point. I think speed is probably overhyped here for cross-border payments. For business, they need confirmation when it will be paid. What would be what is that they are getting, because they need a control. They don't need it in 5 seconds. It doesn't really solve any the problem which they have. You're trying to solve a problem which they are not facing at this point of time. So we have to consider it. Still, the truest form of cricket is test match. So let's play it in the truest spirit. Make sure that the people who are technically correct, they only score. Otherwise, you will get the people who can come hit sixes only. They will be the only one who will get the maximum bid in IPL. But nevertheless, the test match cricket, whoever scores a century on a fast-seeming pitch, they will succeed. So we have to make sure that the kind of payment system which we are building for future is safe, compliant, and it gives a peace of mind. That is the most important thing, whether it is for business, whether it is for consumer. They need to be aware. So as long as we are able to give that transparency, make sure that they don't need to worry whether it is a fraudulent transaction, if it is compliant. I think they will be happy with that.
Great. Thanks for that point, Vijay. Gaurav, over to you.
Yeah, thanks. And I'll not be drawn into the timeline that you laid out, 2025 or 2030. I'll just look at, let's say, the hows. What are the few things that we need to focus on, right? And the way that we look at it is that there is a lot of innovation that has happened in the past. There are continuing innovations as we speak today, and there will be future innovations. But really the 3-legged thing that I would focus on is customer centricity and inclusive approach. I think that is, and a lot of interesting stuff happening regarding innovations in this space as one broad stream. Innovation that has to necessarily lead to connection and empowerment. I think if we look at from a cross-border payments point of view, remittances is a very narrow segment part of that, very, very small part of the whole cross-border flows. But it was very interesting that in the height of COVID, this was one of the spaces which defied all odds, all World Bank projections about what could potentially go wrong. And I guess that is basically reflective about it being the lifeline. But if I were to give you an example of what empowers and what not, without again getting drawn into the need for speed or lack thereof, there were markets at the height of COVID, in which Western Union was serving its customers by giving home delivery. Now, we thought about money order and home delivery being out of fashion and not good enough or sophisticated anymore, but times change, your response times change. And the third layer that we believe is coming from is the sheer innovation and drive that is coming in from partnerships and integrations. I think what NPCI and the Singapore clearing system are doing are interesting at a let's say at a macro view, but also at a micro view, you can break it down to corridor. And if I were to be really, really focused on in terms of the next level of innovations, which really are the need of the hour, it's actually specific purposes. We seem to have a reasonable hang over the consumer to consumer, and many regulators refer to it as P2P. But we still have a little bit of a journey to cover as far as the whole non-P2P, non-C2C segment is to be covered, right? And it is important. The demand for immediacy from the customer is not related to speed. You know, you can say it's related to speed. It's not really related to speed. We have been into speed money transfer for our existence because our cash money transfer was all about 10 minutes. The need for immediacy is coming from control. The customers expect and demand control over the instruction that they have provided. It might be a bank, it might be a money transfer operator, it might be whoever you meet with for a commercial transaction. So I would think we do some of these 3 or 4 steps with a lot of innovation and incubation that is happening right now. Specific use cases will evolve similar to where C2C or P2P already is, but the real focus is going to be on the C2B, B2C. And again, it comes from a philosophy that when people move, good things happen. In COVID, the whole notion of people movement has also changed. You can move without physically moving. You can be remote moving, and people are doing it. People are stuck here or in Canada or wherever. Business continues, life continues, and they're just interested in making their life better and more simplified tomorrow. So I would just focus on, let's say, these 3 pillars as a philosophy or a strategy that we'd continue to focus on.
Great. Thanks for that closing remarks, Gaurav. Naushad, over to you.
Sorry, hi. So I think enough has been said across the room, but I would just like to give an example of how information flow is more important than fund flow in any kind of payment that we have. If you want to buy a ticket today to fly to Delhi from Bombay at 5 o'clock in the evening, you can log into Make My Trip or any of these portals, buy a ticket, and at 5 p.m. you'll be in the plane. At 7 p.m. you'll be in Delhi, but the money still not reached Make My Trip. They've given you the ticket based on the information that the money is good. And I think we need to understand that the information flow is critical to make these payments more reliable and more happening. While Make My Trip will want that money real time because of working capital and fund flow requirements, etc., far more than an individual needs it on a real time basis. It will take some time for that to happen. Until that time, we need to understand that information flow is the key. The guarantee of money being delivered is what is key, and not the money itself. If we are not able to, of course, follow that promise, then there's a major problem. But I don't see any payment system across the world making such a promise and not being able to fulfill it. And I will just reiterate, while keeping our eye on the end goal. I'm Parsi. I hope I live long enough to see it. But assuming that it happens in the next 5 years, let's just assume, because PwC wants to put it in their report that in the year 2030 certain things will happen. but we still have to go through this whole crawl, walk, and run process. We may crawl for shorter times than we used to crawl earlier. We may walk for shorter times than we walk earlier. The evolution from a big box color TV to an OLED TV has been only 10-15 years, but so the evolution has been faster, but it still has been an evolution. And I think that's what we all need to be, brace ourselves for, and try to have our views matching, whether it's a conference or a conference room. Sometimes we tend to have different views in conferences and different views inside a conference room. And I think we should be more and more cognizant of those two views kind of converging. Thank you again, everybody, for your time.
Yeah, thank you for that insightful points, Naushad. Mr. Chitti and then Anubhav.
Yeah, I mean, without bringing the timeline into the discussion, I guess I will, split my points on two bases. First is that I guess we all in agreement that technology innovation is happening, started to happen, will continue to happen, right? So then there is a whole bunch of people already very easily adaptable to those technology, but we also need to understand there's a whole bunch of people who may not. So that's why I guess the education, awareness, assurance, I mean, people are used to going to the bank branch and filling up a form and say transfer money, but yeah, they're going to sit in the house and open an app and do it. So, something like what a mutual fund industry is doing in terms of educating, providing awareness, assurance, I guess that will be critical. And the second part, I guess, Vijay took a very interesting example of cricket. If I can take football, the timeline is predefined, right? But the focus will be on whether the rules of the game are followed, whether, are you breaking the rule? Are you playing by the ethics and the spirit of the game? I guess that will be the second part of the focus. So that's where the compliance, security, all those factors will come into play.
Great. Thanks, Chitti Babu. Anubhav, final closing remarks from your side.
Sure. Thanks, Dhaval. And from my side, the timeline of 2025 excites me. When you look at a timeline, you want to go after it. And on a personal note, I would be really happy to see interconnected countries. And I tend to agree with what Nivedita briefly said. We are up for, smaller innovations coming up in specific corridors. And my limited submission, therefore, is that given the fact that the problem statements are known, and of enough and more papers which are written around the problem statement, somebody who's in a position to solve for everything which my esteemed co-panelists did mention, whether it is speed, whether it's efficiency, whether it's about compliance, somebody who does that very quickly. And I want to believe that they would lay down the path for future applications. And God willing, it should be someone from within India who's looking at this kind of an innovative path. And we would then want to look at quick replication. I think this timeline, again, I don't want to take away the timeline you mentioned. Pretty exciting, and I think faster we do it, the better it's going to be in terms of replication across the world. And Naushad will collectively see that happen.
Yeah. On that high note, I think thank you so much, everyone, for participating in this panel discussion. It has been great and very insightful conversation, some meaningful discussions and meaningful points. And of course, the faster we do, the better. I mean, everyone is excited to see how this industry evolves and how everyone, can do this in a better, secure, and in a convenient way. So thank you very much once again to everyone on participating and sharing your thoughts.
Thank you, everybody.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Pleasure being here.
Everyone.